Today's topic of discussion is chasing women. So I see a lot of guys in today's time chasing after women. They feel as though they aren't good enough. They have to waste their time, waste their energy, waste their resources trying to please these women. And these women here don't have any respect for them. So in this video, we're going to be discussing some key points in terms of why chasing after women is a bad idea and how it turns them off. So first point is self-respect. Now I'm going to play this 1-minute clip for you guys of a guy explaining why chasing after all these girls is a bad idea and how they eventually leave you in the long run. So I'll play it now for you guys.
Start catching feelings for her. Pay attention. Some guys, they run after girls a lot. They run after girls, and he just wants to get married. And his whole life is about a girl. She broke his heart. He's crying at home now. I'm gonna tell you something that's gonna make you feel better, bro. If that woman was your wife, you actually married her. When you die, she's gonna cry for a while, but then she's gonna get over you. She's gonna forget about you, and then she's gonna start feeling lonely again. She's gonna want another man, and she's gonna get another man. She's gonna bring another man onto your bed, and that man will enjoy your wife. He will enjoy her. She'll call him babe. She'll call him honey. If you have kids, your kids will call him dad. And she's not wrong for doing that. That's the world. Your own wife is going to eventually move on, brother. And as every day passes, your memory becomes weaker. Some brothers wake up and swallow coffee. You're running after these girls, man. Running after this dunya, running after this money. Your family goes back. And your wealth goes back. What you see, all these cars and clothes and everything that you work for, none of it is gonna come into your grave, man. In fact, your family, when they go back, they're gonna fight over all of the things that you earned. What? For inheritance.
Okay, so you guys are back now. You've had a watch of it. Now, in that video, you got the guy saying how all these youngsters seem to be chasing after these girls, and eventually what happens is they'll get into a relationship, they'll end up getting married, have kids, and then he's going to end up being 6 feet in the grave. She's going to miss him for a short period of time, and then she's going to move on. Now, after she's now moved on, she's going to end up getting a guy who she's going to get married to, and then that guy there is going to be enjoying his wife, and then the kids are going to be calling him Dada. Now, what guys in today's time have an issue with is self-respect. Self-respect is missing in today's time. Now, you've got certain individuals who will go above and beyond. They'll spend all this money on all these stupid dates, taking these women out, sending them hundreds of messages, hundreds of DMs, flipping, phone calls, you name it. But how many of those guys are doing the same thing with their own mum? Now, you guys probably haven't thought about that because it's not common knowledge in today's time. So a lot of guys will spend all this time, attention, resources on all these women that they don't even know, they don't even recognize, they don't even have a real life relationship with. But their own sisters, their mums, the women in their own family, they're not gonna spend the time, resources, attention, and so on them. Now, that's just one example. Now, if a guy's got self-respect and he values himself, if a woman's not reciprocating the same amount of effort, the same amount of energy, time, resources, etc., he's gonna pull away. He's gonna feel as though this is a waste of time. But a lot of guys don't think with their brains, with their logic reasoning. They're thinking with flipping down there. Now, I'm going to give you guys a little story. So this was about a week and a half ago or something. So I received this DM from a girl. I've had like back and forth with her and stuff, but nothing like, it's not a haram relationship or anything like that. But anyway, she must have hit me up with a DM. She was like, oh yeah, I need some advice, or whatever the case is. Then I was like, alright, cool. I'll be free in an hour or so. So she must have phoned me, right? And then we were speaking on call, right? And she's been in like a relationship, like a haram type relationship with this guy. It must have been about a month, 2 months or something like that. So she's a young girl. She's about 19 years old. And that guy there, he obviously didn't have any self-respect for himself. So when she broke up with him, she split up with him and she don't want nothing to do with him. This beta male started calling her a no-caller ID. He started begging her. He started saying, please, why are you leaving me? I mean, that's just going to lower the woman's desire and respect for you even more. Now, I didn't know how bad it was until quite a few girls have been doing this with me over the years. They seem to label me as the guy who's like the flipping guy to cheat with, even though I'm not like that and I don't entertain these type of people. But these girls here, they'll be playing around with certain individuals. And then when these individuals show weakness, show, weak character, feminine behavior, whatever you want to call it, they end up moving on to another guy. When a guy who's perceived as higher value. Now, for some of you guys, you may have already been in that position where you was talking to a girl and then you found out she's talking to somebody else. This is what it is. It's a cold world. So some of you guys are thinking these women are ruthless, they're brutal, and so on. Well, you have to match their energy. You can't let it faze you. Now with that guy, right, he was blowing up her phone and then she was asking me, oh yeah, what should I do? And I was just talking to her. I was like, you're getting a kick out of this, aren't you? You're enjoying this. And then she was like, yeah, it's quite funny. And she was having a good little giggle. You know what I'm saying? So she must call me about 12, 1 o'clock in the night time. Now, she's gone as far as, this is, what's bad? It's just, the way I'm describing this is like, these guys here, they just put these girls on the flipping, like queen level, Her Majesty. I'm looking at her, I'm just like, I've already seen her, she's not even all that, but she's considered good looking and attractive and whatever the case is. She's obviously got attention on her, because she's quite young, isn't it? She's young, attractive, and so on. But to me, when you spoke to them type of women anyway, you're not gonna want a relationship with them because you got a set standard for yourself. So then anyway, long story short, right, about 10-15 minutes, I must have been asking her about, have you got details about another guy for me? Because there's a little situation I had a back and forth with. So I needed her to do something for me. But she's like, nah, I haven't got that done for you just yet. And then I'm going to get that done for you. I was like, alright, cool. So just call me, make sure that situation, you sort it out for me to do something. Anyway, she was like, alright, cool. And then she was like, oh yeah, if he does it again, I'm gonna need to speak to you. I was just like, listen, don't speak to me about this situation. Don't give a damn. I couldn't care less. But anyway, cut the call. And then I think it was like, yeah, so phoned me a few times. So this was like a week later or something like that. So she called me again. And then this time she started talking about some random BS about some homeless guy, some guy who's come out of the hospital or something. And he's basically tried to knock on her door and stuff like that. But anyway, the moral of the story is these girls here ain't gonna be loyal to you guys if you don't have self-respect for yourselves. If you don't have self-respect for yourselves, you don't value yourself, don't expect these women to value you. So next one is purpose. Now, each of you who's watching this video, you guys here need to be working on your purpose. You need to be grinding day in, day out, improving mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. When you excel in all those areas and you're constantly improving your connection with God, you're prioritizing yourself, your health, your purpose, which is everything intertwines with that. Family values, working on your business, and so on. That right there is something that isn't going to go away. It's not going to leave you. It's not going to decide one day that I'm not happy anymore and I want to pack my things and go. That's always going to be there. So it's really important you prioritize your purpose. Because if you don't prioritize that and you prioritize a woman, you're going to lose your purpose and a woman. And that's what's funny about it. So what's the point of choosing the woman when you can work on your purpose, choose that, and then the woman will eventually fall in line. She's going to have the self-respect, you're going to have the self-respect, she's going to see that you're building a goal, objective, you're working towards a goal and an objective, and she knows that you're going places. But guys have got it twisted. Guys have got it the other way around. They'll feel as though they need to attach onto a woman and show needy, desperate behavior. That ain't gonna help you in any area of life by trying to attach onto a woman. So next point is value. Now, the truth of the matter is women will flock to the men of value. Whether you like it or you don't like it, the truth is women will attach onto the strongest possible partner that they can get their hands on. Now, it's not the superficial metrics you guys are seeing on social media related to money, status, looks, and so on, because there's a bunch of guys like that in the world and they're struggling to even have a relationship or conversation with a woman. Never mind relationship, have a conversation. because the issue is, right, they haven't built the internal. So as I mentioned in the earlier part of the video, so you need to work on your mental game, physical game, emotional game, spiritual game. So you got certain areas that you can control and certain areas that you cannot control. So you got to focus on the ones that you can control. Those are the areas where you can improve on. But the ones you cannot control, you just disregard them. You don't pay attention to it. Let's say you wanted blue eyes as an example, but you've got brown eyes or hazel eyes or whatever the case is. Don't get attached onto that. Now, some women will come into your life, they will feel as though you're not quite up to scratch, and then they go with somebody else. Certain guys are going to end up hating that woman, despising her, seeing her as a traitor or an enemy or whatever the case is. But other men who are value driven, purpose driven, they're going to see that as that's part of their learning curve. They're going to want to be in a position where they are that man that the other woman wants to be with. They're going to be working, they're going to be grinding, they're going to be increasing their value. So then if a woman does decide to entertain other sets of men or potentially look at other people, that's not going to be the right person for you anyway. Because your value is going to be all the way up here and her value is going to be down here. You don't want to entertain certain women who feel as though you're not good enough or you're not her best option. You want a woman to feel as though she's very lucky to be with you. You don't want certain guys, so you got people that you guys probably know of, they're in relationships where the woman doesn't respect them, doesn't love them, doesn't show appreciation towards them, treating them like doormats. You don't want to be in that position where a woman looks at you like that way. So you'd rather stay single than to deal with that. So final point is mum. Now the truth of the matter is, a lot of these guys who are chasing after girls have a bad relationship with their mum. Their mums are either skets, promiscuous, their mum don't respect their dad, they haven't really got a strong masculine father figure. There's a lot of insecurities and weaknesses within them that they haven't fixed. This is why certain guys are chasing after women. Now a guy on paper can be, for example, let's say he's got money, he's a millionaire, he's got looks, he's handsome, he's successful, he's charismatic, he's tall, he's flipping good personality, etc. But when he comes across this woman, his whole character and demeanor and behavior changes. He starts putting her as she's the prize. And then before you know it, she's pulling away. So initially she was looking at him like, oh yeah, this guy here might be a potential. And then she disqualifies him and then develops feelings and an attachment with somebody else. The reason being is because guys like that haven't worked on their own internal deficiencies. Now, for the guys who are watching this, if you look at your mums, so the women in your life, the first person is your mum. Is she somebody who's a good role model? Somebody who's kept her chastity, prioritized marriage, got good family values, good strong connection with God? Or is she somebody who's loose out on the streets, or was loose out on the streets? Because chances are, right, if it's the second example, then you're not going to have any standards for a woman. You got certain guys, right, who their mums dress provocatively, and then they want their partner to dress provocatively as well. So certain mums out there, quite a lot of them, they don't wear no hijab or modest clothing or so on, and they don't really care that their partner wears it or doesn't wear it. Whereas a guy who's been raised with a good mum, who's got good values, good ethics, he's not going to settle for a promiscuous woman or a woman who's not up to scratch. Why would he? Because he's used to a certain lifestyle. He's used to a certain standard. He's not going to drop his standard because the environment is full of low quality women. And that's what it is in today's time. There's a bunch of women who aren't up to scratch. And it's the same thing with guys. You got men and women. Both of them, a lot of them aren't up to scratch. So you got to assess yourself and see where you fall in the hierarchy. So just to wrap up, self-respect. Guys need to develop self-respect for themselves. You don't chase women. Don't try and satisfy them, please them. Try and get them to cooperate with you and making them try to respect you. None of that works. I tell a woman once. Now she wants to either cooperate. If she don't want to cooperate, she can exit out. Go, leave. As you guys speak to more sets of women, you come across different types of women in the society that we're living in. You're not really going to give a damn if this person here ends up leaving. You're going to be like, go ahead, crack on. And then next point after that was purpose. So when a woman ends up leaving, she ends up going astray. You still got your purpose. You still got your mission that needs to be completed. That's why in the game, the chess game, as soon as the king dies, it's game over. But the queen can get killed, and then the game can still go on. So some of these women, they're going to end up leaving you guys. So you got divorce rates which are around 50%. So around half of the people watching this, they're going to get divorced based off of the stats, including myself. So let's say, for example, half of us get a divorce. Is the game over? Is it finished? The answer is no. You guys need to realize the game still goes. It still continues. So even if we're not divorced, we still got to continue working on our purpose. So that's really important. That doesn't change. And then next one after that was value. As you improve your value, as you climb the ranks, you become more well-rounded as a masculine man. You know yourself through and through. You've been through several trials and tribulations, several hardships. You know what the saying is, a wise man learns from the mistakes of other people. So if you guys are wise, you're going to learn from people who have made mistakes in their relationships. You're not going to get stung by the same snake, or you're not going to fall down the same rabbit hole that they've gone through. You don't need to go near a snake to get bitten by it in order to realize it's a snake. But guys have got it twisted. They're going to want to still go near it because they're flipping thick. And then final point was mum. So if you guys have got a good mum, a woman who's got good values, good ethics, she's got a decent moral compass, you're not going to settle for any leftover, any woman who's been loose out on the streets. You're going to have a certain standard. You're going to have that standard that you don't want to break. Because the very least is getting something as close to that. You don't want to just drop all the way down. Because chances are, right, if you lower your standards, you lower your respect, she's going to eventually leave as well. Because she realizes she has power over you lot. So, I hope that makes sense, guys. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.